a record of the delightful piece they're going to play this evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, 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 your attention, please, attention, please, attention, please.
And now the moment we've been waiting for is here.
Hey, welcome back to our third episode tonight and Requiem Radio, and I'm excited to have our guest here, Ariel. Ariel, how you doing, man?
Doing well, thanks.
Would you care to do a quick introduction of yourself for the audience, for people who don't know you?
Yeah, my name's Ariel. I do this thing called Radio Uninvited. And what we try to do on Radio Uninvited is we try to get away from like extremist politics, kind of extreme left, extreme right. I think that, our political parties are acting like two divorced parents that do nothing for the kids except use the kids as like a conduit to just fight each other, and I think that's bullshit. And we just want to see how like practical problems can be solved. Radio Uninvited just doesn't interview like political people. We interview people in like science, technology, stoicism, arts, all sorts of stuff. So we want to kind of invite these uninvited voices. And also on Twitter, my handle is Ariel Nation. That's ARIEL NATION 2023. And I love hosting Twitter Spaces and hosting topics about like political things, science, technology things, kind of like philosophy things, and that's basically it.
Hell yeah. What made you want to get into, the idea of making a podcast, hosting of Radio Uninvited?
Well, I mean, I really think that we've done a really, really bad job of integrating the new generation into our society through the schooling system. If I'm being honest, like the U.S. schooling system is, pardon me, but I think it's a gigantic disgrace. We learn nothing about like money or relationships or even how like our own freaking like houses get built or anything like that. So you would think that in a country as interesting and as big as ours that you'd be learning this stuff, but no, it's just at least for us millennials, I don't know what they're doing with Gen Z, but the schooling's been nothing but a bunch of like route memorization and repeating it, and almost like 90% of the things that I've learned through that dynamic of schooling, I could have just done in like a Google search. So I mean, that to me is like ridiculous, and that's why I thought like I don't know why the news isn't bringing this up. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because I remember when I was in both middle school and like fifth grade, stuff like that, having like older teachers who would always tell us like it's very important you pay attention because you're not going to have a robot following you around all day telling you the answers to everything. And then now here we are in 2023, and we got iPhones and stuff and literal robots in our pockets that, like you said earlier, you could just simply Google and look up. So it's one of those things, like, I feel like I agree with you. It'd be better if, let's say schooling does more to do with, like, let's say, hey, here's how you navigate, through, I don't know, like, search engines. Here's how you find if a source is credible. Here's how you understand statistics and data better. Things like that, like, helps people, like, at least have a barrier so they know something like, okay, this isn't just, a propaganda piece, or, oh, this isn't just uncredible, something that can actually make the general mass of population intelligent instead of, dumb enough to go through life, if you will. And right. I feel like, yeah, public education sets people up for that a lot, definitely.
Right, and it's funny, like, public education doesn't even tell you what an HOA is. like until I've lived in this place, like I had like no idea all this like building politics and all this stuff. I'm dealing with such a issue, and it's just or they don't tell you like who in your life is like a narcissist. What kind of relationship do you have that the person is just using you? But it's like, of course they wouldn't tell you that because the schools have that relationship with you.
Agreed. It's just like this weird you know,
Right.
or pariah relationship, basically, like, no, you need me. It's equivalent to like an
Right.
abusive husband hitting the spouse, like, no, you need to save me. It's like, whoa,
Right. Yeah.
do you?
An abusive school teaching us like garbage, and no, you need us or you'll never be successful in life. And then it's like you get the degree or the whatever, and then they're like, okay, pal, you're on your own. You're like, what? Yeah, that's right, bye. Like, this is,
Something
uh,
interesting you
a lot
mentioned
of bullshit.
too, like,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of things get like the society we're living in, things move so rapidly with technology, and it's kind of like, you either evolve or you get cut out, basically. So, example, the typewriters, it was no longer a necessity, and it was an obsolete, field, and that, was cut out, basically. And you see things like, let's say, the telephone. You look at a telephone in 1923, and you look at a telephone now, it's radically different. You look at a car in like 1923, and you look at one now, it's like also radically different. But you look at an education system like a school, and you look at one now, it's nigh the same, basically. It's the same format, sitting at a desk, all lined up, all doing this certain schooling. And to me, I'm like, you think we could do anything to change or adapt that to help, the youth do better in like society or getting out in the future? But what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my thoughts are like, I know it's kind of sad, but it's like, why would they even want us doing better? Like, maybe they don't care if we reach our potential. They don't care about our creativity, our talent, our intelligence, and they just care if, like George Carlin said, we're just smart enough to like pull the levers and go to like a dead end job, but like just dumb enough not to question what any of it means.
Agreed.
Right. So,
Earlier,
so my best education is kind of like self education, and I don't know if you can really call it the school of hard knocks, but it was just like, okay, like let me research like a topic that I'm interested in, and just be in the environments where the people who enjoy talking about it are. Yeah.
no, 100%. And I don't know. It's frustrating because people try to put up all these blockages where like people like me or you bring up the education system and like bring up the flaws or failings in it. And like, oh, but without the education system, how would we do this and this? And it's like a mix of them like not even wanting to entertain the idea of like, adapting or changing or like making things better for people. It's kind of like they're so stuck in this like
but
archaic mindset for it. It's weird to me. Like, I don't know.
but look at our values as a society, and you think it's like kind of gross that like why do people pay attention to things like pop culture? I mean, like I don't want to like I don't even care if I offend anyone, but it's like, okay, like I look at like our news, and I look at the people who are getting the most attention. They're usually people who have a lot of money, who are well off, and they have a lot of drama in their lives. And I'm like, why are people stupid enough to pay attention to people like this? If I had like this amount of money and power, I would know how to live intelligently enough that my life wouldn't have like this kind of drama in it. There are people who went through this like schooling system who are confused, who are frustrated, who are like living hand to mouth. They don't get the attention, but yet you pay attention to these overpaid, overprivileged morons over the people who actually need help, and then we wonder why we're in the place we're in. Like, what, it doesn't add up.
It's it's one of those things. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. But um, if I guess let's say you were in charge of it, we were bouncing around ideas of like saying like, hey, so like not social media, but like the internet's able to help with learning a lot of things. What's something you would, I guess, say is a starting point that we could go from here for like education or just spitballing some ideas? What would you try to
Right.
do?
Yeah. Well. What it's like, what the Forward Party is trying to do, and I think what's really cool is that at least in a district in Los Angeles, I want to give a shout out to my friend Josh Bocanegra, who is a AI guy who's an entrepreneur, And the reason why, like, when I heard this from him, I quickly attached to what he was trying to do. And me and him are very good friends now. He just made a speech about how we don't teach our kids about like finances and money and stuff like that. And he's recently told me he took his daughter out of like public school to put her in an online private school. And when people tell me that, like, oh, but here's the thing about like just online schools or homeschooling or private school is like you don't get the socialization. And like, what socialization? First of all, like your socialization is forced, like at a set time, and you don't really learn how to be social like outside of that set. And then when you want to be social in the classroom, the teacher tells you no socializing. You have to pay attention to the material. So I see no problem with somebody like learning from home or getting homeschooled. And then for socialization, I don't know, the parents take them to like a park or like somewhere.
You know, for like a soccer team or something, you know, the local town soccer team.
Right, exactly. It's like what is this? Like this is not rocket science. And also like you only learn to socialize in school with people who are near your age. That's not the way the rest of life works.
Exactly. I remember my first part-time job when I was like 15, working with a dude who was like in his 60s, basically. I was just sitting here like, huh, this is interesting. Like, how do I interact with this individual? And like, I'm not trying to sound weird or anything like that, but it's just like really weird to be like, oh, I'm now in like, you know, a quote unquote professional environment with, you know, someone who's like more than a third of my age, no, more than fourth of my age. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, how do you engage this stuff? But
Right.
yeah, definitely on that. Do you feel like, in general, though, actually leads a good question for a lot of youth and younger people? Do you think there's been more of a lack of socialization given past few years, especially
Oh
like
yeah.
things?
Because people are just basically like avatars and they're not exactly who they are in like reality because of all the social media that's gone haywire. I would suggest that people do more social audio. It's so much better. I mean, even for me, like personally, I don't like I know this is crazy. If I'm in a rush or if I don't have time, I'll text people, but I so prefer hearing people's voices
Amen.
than like texting them and all that because it just adds a layer. It just adds such a great layer of like. In fact, sometimes I would rather prefer than just hearing a person's voice than actually being in like a physical location with the other person because like I'm a little bit introverted, but it's so comfortable because you know like if you end up like offending someone or something that they're not like physically near you to like get aggressive or something like that,
Yeah,
but not to say I want to offend anybody, but it's like okay, I have an interface like between us, so if things get weird and uncomfortable I can just hang up. But if we're in the same location, I can't get away from you in the way that I probably want.
no, and it's funny. Like you hear guys, like I agree with you. It's one of the things that really got me with like Twitter and Twitter Spaces. And for people who don't know what Twitter Spaces are, they're basically like a giant chat room you can get in and just talk to people, and you could leave whenever you want. So someone could host it, make a topic for the room, basically. And if they want, they can record it or not. But I know Ariel, for example, he did a space on what was it, confidence you were
Yeah.
doing, and then like I'll host a space on, you know, because I'm Catholic, just, you know, like, hey, here's a space on religion or philosophy, and it's something we enjoy doing. But I 100% agree with Ariel there because like you don't know how many times I've heard people on like Twitter Spaces like lose their mind and just be like, "I'm gonna find you, I'm gonna punch you, I'm gonna do all these things to you." And I'm like, man, it's not that deep, you know. It's, I mean,
Right.
it's like it's not that important. Like it's just some random dude. It's like, all right, yeah, come find me in like this location 300 miles away from you. Like, good luck, buddy.
That's the funny thing. It's like, and if they're really annoying, you can just remove them. And that's the thing, like as opposed to, let's say if there was some kind of like, party or something like that, and the person is already there, and then you find out like they're like a nutball, but it's too weird and awkward to like, tell them that and be like, okay, like you can go home. It's like when you're there. But like there were two people in my Twitter space like about a couple of days ago, and they had like no respect for the room, for the topic. They were going completely off topic. They didn't care. They didn't wait their turns to speak. And I just removed them immediately. And if that were like a physical situation, I couldn't just do that. You know?
Yeah, it's just like, and you're gone, like that Black Mirror episode where everyone's hooked up to social media, and like if there's someone in real life, you get blocked them where you just simply don't see their existence. I'm like, huh, that's like just and gone.
No. That's the thing. I think that this is one of the things that our schooling system doesn't teach us, and I think it's a travesty. And I think, there are also a lot of people out there, a lot of like entrepreneurs who speak out against the schooling system too. But I've also learned something else in my life as well. Just because someone is speaking out or hates the same thing that you hate doesn't mean they're your friend. Because I would just tell young people to be very wary of people selling like online courses with like a big price tag or a multi-level marketing, and they're also giving you the story that school didn't teach them anything. But these people don't care about you. They just want your money.
It's kind of like Andrew Tate and him running that, what's it called, Hustlers University.
Right, exactly.
And it's just like bullshit. It's like, I had a buddy who actually, for shits and giggles, got the course to see like what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And he ended up looking at their page, and all it is them like going on Google, typing in masculine man motivational quotes, and it's like pictures of Greek statues with like random like words on it, being like, to be a man is to be masculine. And then, like that's the quote, that's it. And it'll be like a screenshot of that, and they post it, and they're like, "Thank you for the $50." It's like, thanks for the advice. I'm like, what?
Yeah, now that you mentioned that, I want to warn people about a guy his name is Dan Locke. Steer very clear of him. He's a scammer. He's a liar. He's a hypocrite. He's just an all around terrible person. And I have a whole interview on CoffeeZilla talking about my experience and how people like this, they use your emotions against you. Basically, they say they're frustrated about the same things that you're frustrated about. They say they're happy with the same things you're happy about, and they talk about your dreams, and then that's where they'll like trap you. So just like I went through it, so you guys don't have to.
Oh, you're on CoffeeZilla?
Yeah, you know him?
You mentioned him before to me a while ago. I didn't know you're actually on his platform though. I didn't know.
Well, it's not his main channel. Well, actually, one of my poems made it to his main channel. He has a kind of spin-off channel he does with someone else called The Drip. And I had about an hour and 45-minute talk about what Dan Locke did, how we did it, how these, kind of scammers kind of like do what they do. So, I mean, not only in my life did I learn that you can't trust the schooling system, but also just because somebody says that they don't like the schooling system or they don't trust the schooling system either, they're not automatically your friends. Just remember that too.
No, a good example, you mentioned that. I have a friend on Twitter, I'm not going to say her name, but he is a very, proud vote blue no matter who Democrat. He's a very kind dude, very nice guy, but he's a bit naive at times for like politics. Like I could tell like he's just saying his foot in the door in it. And he likes talking to me because I have vastly different views from him, and he's interested because to him, he always thought it was like Team Red versus Team Blue. And then you have people like myself or like you who's like, yeah, we're not doing any of those. And then we're just like an anomaly to these people. But he ended up sending me a room, and it was like, you really should check out this dude. He said he was right wing, and he has a lot of views I agree with. I checked the name of it. It was Richard Spencer on Twitter. I'm like, oh God. And then I listened in, and then it's basically someone asking him like, hey, Richard, what's your opinion on abortion? And he says like, grimacingly being like, oh, I am very pro-abortion. And then like all the Democrats in chat are like clapping. And then they're like, what's your opinion about police? He's like, I am very for defunding the police. And then it was like, what's your opinion on gun control? It was like, I am very for taking guns away. And then I'm just sitting here being like, trying to explain to my friend who like is texting me like, hey, if he's like right wing believes this, that means we could believe it too. I'm trying to say to him like, look, man, it's 1 minute. You lost connection for a second?
Yeah, no, my garage, but I'm back. Go ahead.
All good, all good. So I was just basically trying to explain to him like exactly what you said, like, hey, he didn't know who Richard Spencer was, and he heard him say all these views that he agreed with. I'm trying to explain to him like, look, just because you guys agree with the same views, they agree on it for vastly different reasons. And then he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, okay, listen to what he said about Israel and Palestine. He's like, yeah, Israel is not a legitimate state. It does not belong to them. I want it eradicated from them. I'm like, don't you think it's a bit strong words for that position? And I showed him some earlier clips. He's like, oh, so this guy's like, a white supremacist. I'm like, yeah, he's a white supremacist. And he was just so embarrassed. He's like, dude, like, how did I not know? I'm like, it's okay, man. Like, just make sure you pay attention to people and know, like you said earlier, just because you agree with something doesn't mean you're on the same team with somebody type thing.
Exactly. Like, and just because you agree with somebody, like, doesn't mean you don't know who that person is, like, behind closed doors. Maybe they have great political opinions, but maybe they beat their wife. I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
It's like, so I've learned that just because I have one good conversation or even five good conversations with any kind of person doesn't mean that, like, I know them or they're a good person. They could be
Exactly.
anybody. Exactly. Just like you warned me, there was some like Catholic anti-Semite like coming into my room, and you messaged me and you told me like, hey, like, this guy is like, he's a little, nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's so funny, like, the way these things work. I mean, I have a very simple rule for, like, friendships. It's like, I look, I'll treat you the way you treat me, with kindness and respect. And I have no more room in my life for unnecessary drama. Like
Amen.
that. Yeah. Like, it's just not productive.
It's what's it? Yeah, I remember that happening, and I told you because like I have a lot of respect for you. I think you're a really good dude, and you have a great heart, and you're actually trying and to make the world a better place. That's something you don't see as much nowadays. Where it's like the genuine compassion to be like, yeah, I want to help people instead of I'll help you, but I'm going to gain something out of this mentality. You know what I mean?
Not a clout chaser.
Yeah, no. A lot of politicians nowadays are like that too, where they're like, "Oh yeah, vote for me, and then I'll help you." But behind closed doors, they're doing it because they know they're filling their own pockets and helping themselves. And
Or just really quick, some people who don't keep their promises. There's a special class of people out there that'll make you really excited, and they'll agree with you, and they'll tell you things that you want to hear, but when it comes down to the wire, they don't show up. They make it up and stuff like that. So just wanted to let people know about that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind me asking, going into the Ford party, so I want to know before the Ford party, what were you like? Would you say you identify yourself as, or if not anything at all?
My political journey is quite an interesting one. I just kind of hated the establishment because I live in, like, LA, by the way, and when Obama would always come to LA, like, all he'd do is just ruin all of our traffic patterns, and it would be like what?
No, I was just laughing at that, just thinking like you going to work like fuck. It's like it blocked.
Right, yeah, exactly. And so I just thought that, like, Obama would make all these, like, big lofty speeches. Like, I could do that too, if I'm being honest. I can make big lofty speeches. I'm actually pretty good at it. But then, like, the follow through was, like, not there. So everybody would just, like, listen to an Obama speech and be like, "Oh my god, he's so," and then when it got to something actually changing, it was like, yeah, you get nothing. But anyway, then
Just
no,
like this drone strike, and you're like, oh no.
right, exactly. And then and then when Trump came on the scene, I was like, oh, okay, this is exciting because he's not from these people, he's different. But then, I'm not gonna lie, I had a little bit of like Schadenfreude when like Trump won because like the Democrats just thought they were like invincible, like they nothing could hurt them, like they would always, after Obama, like everyone's gonna be a Democrat. But about like 2 years into Trump's presidency, I was like, okay, you can shut up now. Like you're making this all about your ego. You're making it all about you. You're making it all about, and I'm not impressed anymore. Like you're spoiled. You grew up in like the fanciest, New York place. You had not even the silver spoon. He had like the platinum spoon in his mouth, and he doesn't get it. Now, until Andrew Yang came on the scene, Andrew Yang was like, he was the most genuine, kindest, compassionate, like real, authentic person I have ever seen in politics. I honestly believe that if we had Andrew Yang before we had Obama, that would be amazing. That would just be awesome. But anyway, I think the problem with Andrew Yang is that he doesn't know how to debate or put up a fight. He's just too nice. And I say this as his friend. And so I guess the whole idea is that we have to pay attention to artificial intelligence and automation because it's coming. It's not the immigrants and these 60, 70 plus year old politicians. They're not really paying attention. That's where I am right now.
Exactly. Like, there's a lot of fear mongering too, and that's something that really bummed me out about Trump. Because, like, what you said earlier about Trump, I'm like, oh, he's a wild card. He's like not part of the establishment. He's able to kick some dirt in the eyes of people who thought they were nigh invincible. And I was hopeful at first. 'Cause I'm like, all right, he's president. Good for him. Let's see if he can do anything. But like over time, I just felt like, like when you go drain a swamp, when you go do all these things you say you're going to do, you never really got around to doing it. And it just frustrated me a lot because I'm like, hey, you talk a big talk and I respect that as, a leader, but you also got to walk the walk. You know what I mean?
Which he did. Yeah. And not only that, but then it's like, have you noticed that everything is about him and the way people are mean to him, the way that he's perceived? It's like, dude, the world doesn't revolve around your big fat ass. Like, they're like homeless people on the streets right now. You grew up rich in like a Manhattan penthouse for like millions of dollars, and you're complaining about your life. Shut up. Like there are people who are literally like having a hard time making their rent or getting their groceries, and you're complaining about how things have been unfair for you. Shut the hell up.
Exactly. It's one of those things where it's just like a big divide, which frustrates me. But
yeah.
What's it called?
That's it.
Sorry. Do you mind me asking? I always want to know the story since I've met you. How'd you end up meeting Andrew Yang? Like that big of a guy? Like,
yeah, 100%. So I think the first time I saw him on the Joe Rogan podcast, he just made sense. Everything he said made sense, but we can't have people making sense. We have to have people like getting people excited for no reason and not doing anything, because that's the way our politics works. It's completely idiotic and stupid. But anyway, all of a sudden I got an email that he would be in downtown LA, believe it or not, and you didn't even have to buy the ticket. So I went over there, but I saw him make his speech, but I didn't really like meet him per se. And I think it wasn't until like I don't know, I kind of there was one event that he did in Long Beach, which was a like Spanish like Telemundo event or something like that.
Mhm.
And then that's where like I was right in front of him, but and I just said hey. But in those settings it's so like loud and noisy and insane that you're not really, how can I say, like if you're in a big place with a lot of noise and a lot of insanity going on, and the person who you want to meet is getting off all the attention, you're not really like meeting them. You're kind of like part of the crowd, right? But the
Yeah.
thing, Yeah. So where I actually met him was where we actually had like a face-to-face talk was at the Forward event with the California Common Sense Party in Hawthorne in Los Angeles, where I actually sat down with him face to face, and I said, I knew exactly what you were doing, but they didn't want people to have such a simple message. You were saying that there were a lot of people who voted for Trump not because they were racist or misogynists. They just saw their way of life like disintegrating, and they didn't know what to do. And you told them that, look, it's not like these things that Trump is saying. It's because that the way that our economy is changing, it's leaving you behind, and we need to like rethink our economy. And he just said, yeah, you got it, and he gave me a thumbs up. And it was like really good to like, feel like that. And that's kind of like where I met him. But even before that, I recruited a lot of people for his Forward Party, what was it, his online for Forward Party through my link. And I got to talk to him like online. And I interviewed him with two of my co-hosts for our Radio Uninvited.
Oh, no.
So yeah.
What's it called? I remember I've spoken to him once, and he was doing a Q&A session on Tour Space, and I, for shits and giggles, requested thinking I wouldn't get brought up, and then I got brought up. I'm like, oh, nice. And then I'm kind of nervous, and then the main person's like, oh, Sola Requiem, you're up to speak. And I'm like, oh, jeez. And then it was like, Andrew's like, hey, man. And I'm like, I was like, I was nervous because I wasn't used to speaking like people like, that high of praise. I'm like, hey, Mr. Yang. He's like, hey, how you doing? I asked him the question, like about UBI and in regards to negative income tax, which was an idea from Austrian economics. I'm like, hey, your UBI system is very similar to, negative income tax. I was wondering if you had any inspiration or anything like this. And he just openly says, like, yeah, a lot of my basis off of UBI is from Austrian economics. I really appreciate the school of thought. I also believe in, having some form of like a minimal safety net for that for UBI. Basically, that helps fill in for these other systems that he feels are, lackluster. So, like, let's say food stamps, some like aren't doing its job. He's like, yeah, UBI should be able to absolve that system and fix it type thing. And I was honestly like shocked. I'm like, oh crap, like this dude's really smart. He knows what, field of Austrian economics is. And that to me, I was really impressed. And it was a good conversation because I was nervous, like he's gonna say something like, oh, you idiot, what are you doing here? And then he was chill. He was like, yeah, sure, I'll answer that. But that's something I really respect a lot.
Yeah, Andrew is one of the most humble people you can ever meet, and I think he's kind of like humble to a fault, even. But that's just his personality. Like a guy, he doesn't have like one mean bone in like his entire body, like from what I've seen. But the thing is that of course, like our system can't have like cordial, friendly, humble people in it. Because we always need drama, we always need controversy, even if it's unnecessary. I mean, that's just the way I don't know. That's just the way things work here.
It's a human thing, I guess. Like people just crave that stuff. Where like, yeah, I like going to areas of drama. It's the philosophy. Right. Yeah, some people are like, what's it called? Bad publicity is good publicity,
right?
Because you still get media time. And it's funny you mention that. AOC, correct?
Yeah.
I remember laughing my ass off because at the time I wasn't Republican anymore. I was, libertarian, and I was watching them fall bait and trap to what a lot of Democrats fell for Trump, where Trump goes on a scene, says the most outlandish like things, and every single, CNN, every left-wing network is recording this dude, reporting his every single microscopic move, trying to paint him in a bad light, but just gaining people's curiosity. And then here comes AOC, who's a left version of that, saying crazy outlandish stuff. And Fox News is like publishing her 24/7, like through the ringer, being like, "Oh, there's no way she could win anything." Like, and then lo and behold, she gets elected to her district, and I'm just like laughing, like, "Wow, you guys really fell for the same thing that I guess the left did for Trump." And it's just like you said, it's honestly just drama. People like drama. People like, going after that stuff. I'm like, for right wingers, that was them being like, oh, look at this socialist type thing, and they fell for the bait. But
Right. And these words are just like, okay, like, so everybody on the right is a fascist, and everybody on the left is a socialist, and they never want to talk to each other, and then our country becomes a dump of, a dumpster fire or something like that. And it's like okay, like, why don't we not pay attention to the people who are name calling and actually pay attention to the people who want to solve the problems? But then it's like, oh, like, we do that, where are we going to get our revenue? Like, it's ridiculous.
um,
Yeah.
what was I gonna say? What would you feel like, in your opinion, is something that, like, bringing up like political division, that both like the Democrat Republican Party could be working on to do better, to get more people to, like, hey, get us back? Because I had this argument with one of my friends who's still, a very stout Republican. He's mad at me. He's like, "Oh, why are you voting Libertarian? It's a vote for the Democrats." And then you have my Democrat friend being like, "Why are you voting Libertarian? That's a vote for the Republicans." And I'm like, "Well, I don't owe any of you guys my vote. Like, this is my personal decision. I have a right to vote for who I choose." And
Just ask
yeah,
them, like, what problems are your robots solving? Like, are they just parakeets, like, repeating like talking points, or do they actually have a plan?
exactly.
Like, people just like, I think the critical thinking levels in this country are like all but dead, and like they have to be brought back from the dead if we are to survive through this just utter nonsense. If I'm being honest, like, I can't even. I don't even know what to say anymore. It's like every single time, it's like the pendulum just swings in this direction of like more and more. I mean, I have to say, I think Biden is better than Obama because he's not, causing all the traffic in LA. Of course, I would want it like Yang, and I think one of the best things our government did was actually giving out those like stimulus checks, and at least they did like the unemployment. So at least this coronavirus bailout wasn't just the corporations and banks, and they actually had a way to bail the people out too. Or else, I mean, I think we would have all just revolted, or there would have been some kind of like, I mean, there were riots, but it would have been even worse if they didn't do that. But like, yeah.
No, agreed. Let me think what else. So we talked about education, we talked about Yang. Oh, that's actually a good question about Yang. He originally was a Democrat, now he's independent with the Forward Party. What was like his jumping point, I guess, to like take that leap to be like, I'm no longer with them?
Just I mean, did you see the way like the Democratic establishment treated him when he was a Democrat?
Exactly. Yeah, like his debate thing where it was like a whole panel of them, and he
Yeah.
only got like one word in, and everyone was like gasped and shocked, and then they just ran right over him. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, it would have been nice to give him more time to speak,
I did, yeah, and getting his name wrong on the thing, and even like calling him John Yang, and then like putting like a random Asian person in his spot, and then like MSNBC must have apologized like 50 times in a row, and then after that, it's like all done on purpose. I think one of Yang's biggest weaknesses was that he didn't like, if it like Trump would have bitched and moaned about that all day, all night, but like some, I've learned in my life, just personally, like, you just can't, if somebody cuts you in front of the line and you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's not that big of a deal. But if people do these things to you like over and over and over and over again, and they undermine you, at some point you just have to say, like, you know what? I'm calling you out. This is BS. This is nonsense. I'm going to let people know about your behavior. You have to be ashamed of yourself. But Yang just didn't do that. And some people were telling me if he did do that, it would have looked worse on him. But I always tell them I don't think so. I think if he can't get up and tell them, like, hey, what you're doing is wrong. When you give me the least amount of speaking time, it's wrong. When you don't put me on when you do this, when you use a different picture, that's not me, it's wrong. When you don't use my name right, that's not right. And the thing, like, people would say, oh, look at this guy, he can stand up for himself, he can fight. But since he didn't do that, people were like, oh, look, well, if he's not gonna stand up and fight for himself, then he's probably not gonna do it for the country. I mean, like,
Oh,
and I say this as a guy who's talked to him, who knows him, who think I want to have an in-depth conversation with him about that, if I'm being honest. But yeah.
would you say he'd be better off as like a VP position, maybe?
I think for his personality, for the kind of guy that he is, this very friendly, very problem solving, very polite, good natured, humbled person, he'd be good in like a background advisory position 100%. Like, just bar none. Like the advisor on like AI automation and economics. Like, if there was a position called that, like, he'd just put him in there immediately. Yeah. So
I'm thinking about like I'm trying to think in my head who'd be a good fit for him then if he's a VP. He'd be a good runner.
Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. She's nice. But she
Yeah.
could put her foot down too. That's another good thing about her.
She what?
She could put her foot down too. Like she doesn't get walked on easy.
Right,
basically.
exactly. Yeah, and I don't, and maybe Cornell West, like they're all kind of, yeah, just like that. I think when they talk about just like how much just corporate power there is and how little power like the people have, like that's really important. And it's like all of our data is like being used, and we're not seeing like the gains and in all of this stuff. So she puts her foot down, maybe Cornell West puts his foot down. They can be like a trio. I don't know.
Great. I can see that. For AI in particular, I remember listening to something interesting. I want to know your opinion on it. I actually think we spoke on this before with Tucker Carlson. He was being interviewed by, I believe, Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro asked him the question, like, hey, he sees AI, Ben sees AI as like, being the future almost. Like, yeah, this is such a good thing. It's so amazing. And then he asks, Tucker Carlson the question like, hey, AI is looking to replace a lot of jobs like, trucking jobs and things like that. Would you be in favor of that, the free market? Or would you want, to have some laws in place to like regulate it or keep it checked, basically? And Tucker, without hesitating, says like, of course, within a heartbeat. And he's like, a lot of these people who work those trucker jobs are from like, small rural towns that depend on them. If you get AI to kill those jobs, you're killing inherently all these smaller towns and places. And that's something I just thought was really interesting. And an opinion on that, like, what would you think about that? Would you be interested in like saying like, hey, some laws or something in place to protect certain jobs, basically?
Well, that's complicated.
Oh yeah, definitely a complicated question.
That's what you could say the same thing about factories, but they lost all their jobs. So I don't know. The truck drivers should be protected, but the factory people shouldn't. I mean, and the thing is that that's why these ideas of like universal basic income and time banking are so important, because if we don't do it and some other country does it, we're gonna be left behind. But that's the thing. It's like, and Tucker Carlson said, like, I like capitalism, but it's not a religion. Like that's
Exactly.
kind of thing. That's there. But I think what's more kind of underlies this whole situation too is just the lack of good, like, I don't know, like I remember like before the pandemic, I was in so many of these like annoying like job retraining programs and getting these certificates and these degrees and stuff, and I still had trouble getting my foot in the door. But I think the worst thing that we don't, the worst thing that school doesn't let us know is like, how do we advocate for ourselves, and how many opportunities are just found in just being an intelligent person who just knows that when you're like around people, you can speak their language and get them to feel good. like a lot of people can be like an amazing candidate for a job, but they just don't know how to speak to the person who's interviewing them. And then on the complete opposite side of that, there could be a person that would be like absolutely terrible for the job, but they know how to talk themselves up. So when I was young, I just said, okay, like what is it I need to do and how does it get done? And that was it. It was very like black and white for me. But then I wouldn't have I was wondering like why am I not getting opportunities in my life? Well, I realized I wasn't getting opportunities in my life because of like my shyness and kind of like how I didn't know how to talk to people. I know it sounds like it, I didn't know how to talk to people in a way that made them feel like good or excited or anything like that. It didn't mean I didn't have a work ethic, but I think that like what it's one of those things because you can go and get all these like degrees and certificates and blah blah blah, but if you don't know like some kind of like networking skill or something like that, it's still going to be tough, you know. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I want to, yeah. Honestly, if I'm thinking of my perfect world, it would just be equality of opportunity where people have a fair chance to actually get off their feet and do something, and less of equality of like outcome, if you will. Like, I don't want a world where everyone is equally given the same thing because I believe humans are so vastly different and unique creatures that it's would be unfair to be like, yeah, you all get the same amount of treatment, same thing. This goes back to like education we were saying earlier. Like, I know there's some kids who are more energetic or they learn in a more creative or different way. I don't feel like there's some flat line like every kid gets taught the same way type thing. And it's just I'm trying to like balance and think of a way to make it possible, you know what I mean? Like, hey, let's give people a shot, you know, let's get people to, you know, learn AI, if you will, like harness the beast and take control of it instead of letting it run rampant and take over like the job
It's
market.
funny. I was having a conversation with this Gen Z kind of Democrat yesterday at Josh Bocanegra's like congressional event, and he said he went to a high school that gave them bachelor's degrees when they graduated, and that was interesting. And I said, did your school kind of line you up for anything before you left? And he said yes, and he does like a radio thing too. And then I thought to myself, like, I think it's a very like stupid thing when people say like, oh, but if school helps, you know, young people line up into jobs, it's like some kind of like socialism or communism. No, it's just called planning, you dumbass. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. And I think the schools that don't do it are, it's like, what the hell, you know, like you spent all that time there, your energy there, you spent all that like time filling out all these like homework assignments and projects and tests and all this to what, to just be thrown into the wilderness after you graduate. I mean, it's so dumb how these like, at least for me, like I was not prepared for what was coming, and they didn't even care to like line me up or do it. And it's like not everybody wants a 4-year degree anyway, so line some of these young people up with good opportunities before they graduate. But it's the dumbest thing, you know. Yeah.
It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And I feel like back to what we were saying earlier, people do you think people just complain just because they're bored? Like, I know it sounds like really silly, but I see Twitter people like complain about the most random things. I'm like, are you guys just bored? Like, do you not know how good
Or
we
they
have
get
that sounds?
everything, you know. And to me it's like, wait a minute, why are we not coming up with a way to solve these problems instead of just complaining about them? Any dummy can complain. The smart person sees like, okay, like what's going to make sense, what's going to be a solution, and who wants to work on the solution with me, not who wants to keep me, you know, company in my misery and just complain with me. And like that, you can do that, but that's not going to solve anything. That's not going to, you know, do anything.
Exactly. It's a lot easier to complain about an issue than like talk about what, you know, needs to be fixed or like
Yeah,
how to fix
or
it.
how. Or how do we even get here, right? It's like, okay, so this was these things that were done got us to this point where we're having this problem. Let's backtrack and let's see, maybe if we go back here and we do it a little differently, we'll like get a better result. I mean, this is not rocket science, but so many people are just, I call it like learned helplessness. It's just like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna stay mad until these people change or these institutions change or my family member changes. Like, well, then you're just hurting yourself. Instead of staying mad until other people change, why don't you find a way to do something that actually helps?
It's like
Right?
victimhood mentality type thing where people will find it easier to just be a victim and wait for a
Yeah.
handout and actually
And,
work.
let me just say, it's like I think people deserve like a hand up. I think people want to there should be like mentors out there, and there should be people out there who are like who want to mentor and help people. But it's kind of like, okay, but let's just say that I used to fall into this trap too. Let's just say you're right, that the people who the people you were dealing with were not good people, were crappy people, and they really did kind of like mess up whatever kind of plan you had. But it's like, now at least as an adult you have a choice to like not talk to those people, not be around those people. And why don't you, instead of complaining about those people who did that to you, why don't you find better people who want to help you, right? Like
Yeah.
okay, like maybe they were terrible, maybe they were horrible, stubborn, bad people, but you have the decision now to cut them out and find better ones, you know.
And honestly, that's the best approach to it. I actually like that. I'm gonna steal that from the area. I'm gonna start using that hand ups now. I'll be like, yeah, guys, this is completely original. My idea, definitely not Ariel.
Well, I heard it from somewhere. But the thing about a hand, I think that's what UBI is. I think people say, there's pull your bootstrap, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But if you don't have any boots, it's a moot point. So there should be more people out there giving you give the people the tools. You don't hate people because they don't have the tools. Then you're just being dumb. But then when you give them the tools, I think they're not your responsibility anymore, right? Then it's like, okay, well, you have the tool. Maybe they don't know. You give them the tools. You teach them how to use the tools, and then after that, they can't complain anymore. But if they don't have the tools, you can't blame them, right? I think that's kind of where I'm at.
I agree with that, and I feel for the tools too. I feel like a mentor helps a lot, and a lot of society we don't have that as much anymore as we did like before. So like let's say before you go to like a job like a mechanic shop, they'd be an older mechanic to teach the younger guys a trade and show them like how to like do good business type stuff like that. But like I feel a lot of stuff nowadays is kind of like what you said, like a rat race where you go to school, you get your degree, then you just go out there, just like go
Right.
go.
Yeah. Well, you got to at least like give people like a map or like a GPS system. You can't just like throw them in the middle of nowhere with nothing and just be like, okay, be free. And it's like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, I don't know where the things are. I don't know who's here, what's going on, why this stuff is around me, what it's all for. And then you would think like that's the schools or the parents, but they don't do that either. So I don't blame the people out there for being confused and angry, because the systems are systems that are making people confused and angry. If these systems weren't so bad, instead of producing all these angry, confused people, they like what if they're what if they just had a mentorship program? It's like, okay, like we're not just going to send you out there without any kind of like idea of like what's going on out there, where but they do that. And it's like, and then it's like, oh, and then they blame it's like, if you put battery acid in a cake and it tasted like crap, you wouldn't blame the cake or the oven. You would blame yourself for putting battery acid in it, you morons. So don't produce a generation of confused, angry young people and then blame them. You didn't teach them well, you didn't mentor them well, you dumb shits. I get angry.
It's all like, all right, man, good luck, go ahead and suck it.
Right.
And then he's like, you son of a bitch. It's like,
Right.
what you put us here?
Right.
Oh,
It's not, all this is not rocket science. But I think like, look, like I was very, very bitter about these things, just bitter. But then
I've learned like, okay, you know what? Like, screw it. Like, being bitter about it like isn't gonna help me. I'm just gonna have to like, Andrew Yang is out there. The California Common Sense Party is out there. All these, like, I'm just gonna learn, and I'm just gonna, like, pave my own way. And then it's not like what they did to me was right. It doesn't make what they did to me right, but it doesn't help me if I just complain about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way you got to look at this now. So you don't turn into like Joker or that Michael Douglas in Falling Down.
No,
Right?
it's just, like you're very, I guess, detached from reality type thing.
Right,
And that's
exactly.
something you don't want to have a society of like young men or like young individuals who have nothing left to lose, because then you have dangerous people.
Oh yeah, exactly. And for me, it's like I find a way. I'm like, you know what, like I am mad at these institutions for being as bad as and incompetent as they were, but that's not that's not who I don't want to remain as that. I you know what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to research myself. I'm gonna do, and the good news is that I've made very good networks of people who just get it, and I'm very happy. And this is something that I didn't have in my past. So when I look at my past, I'm like, well, thank God it's over. And I'm not a nostalgic person. I don't look I don't want to go back to the good old days. There were no good old days. You have to make your today your good day. Make today
Yeah.
your good day. Like, that's what you got to do.
Yesterday was history, tomorrow's is a mystery, and today's the present. Master
Yeah.
Oogway right there from
Look,
Blood
I
Boat.
want to. I want to end this on like a good note, right? I don't want to end this on like, oh, it's hard or blah blah blah, because I feel like so many douchebags out there are just talking about the problems, and they're not talking about like optimistic, uplifting things. So let me do this. Like, okay, so I was, walking around my neighborhood, and I saw this like big, like, high rise, and I just said, you know what? Like, just out of curiosity, let me just tell them I'm looking for a room, and I like want to move in and just see what happens. So I walked in, and I did that, and then they were like, "Oh, okay, we'll show you a room." They showed me like a room on the 26th floor, and I looked out at this beautiful landscape of, like, the buildings and LA and this fancy place. And then I told myself, you know what? I want more spontaneous, fun experiences like this. This is just what I'm gonna do. I'm like, from the job that I quit that I didn't like recently, I'm just going to take it upon myself to just do something spontaneous and interesting, maybe like every other day. So not only did I do that, but then I went to the airport and I started like inquiring about like flying lessons and stuff like that. And it was fun. It was, what?
What was that?
Oh, I went to like these airports around my city, and I just started inquiring about like flying lessons, because that was something that was always on my mind when I was younger. So
Dude,
so
yeah.
yeah. So what I'm saying is that, like, why not just like, why can't I live that life that I wanted, that I did, and maybe I'll just drive to a random radio station in my city, and I'll just say like, hey, you know what, like, just, I want to be around this environment, just help me out here, or what do you need done, like stuff like that, like, it's like, it's empowering. And I think we gotta have more of this empowering mindset than just this mindset of like, oh, these people like bothered me like 5 years ago, so my life is ruined. I can't do anything. Like,
That's mental health you can recommend people too. Is just to like drop social media sometimes, or have like scheduled when you use it, when you don't.
right,
And just go outside, like, I'm not trying to like make the joke of like touch grass, but like literally go outside, walk around your local town center, walk around your park, walk around like any forest, like any area. Like, I don't believe when people are like, oh, there's nothing around me. I'm like, literally go on Google, look up like, places around me. I'm sure you'll
right.
find somewhere to go, like, whether it be a botanical garden, whether it just be you chilling.
a
Like that's
museum,
yeah.
like, you know, like
Museum,
I went,
exactly.
yeah, exactly. And then like I've let go of this idea that I have to go online and I have to like convince everybody to see the things the way like I see them. I'm like what look at all these random people like driving on the freeway in their cars. Like, do I really care if that random person like sees the way things that I do? Well, if I don't care if this random person driving behind me sees the things exactly the same way I do, why do I go on social media and want to do that? Like, you know,
Yeah, you'll have a stroke. It's
Facts.
maddening.
True.
right? Exactly.
Oh, really quick, Ariel. This is my co-host and partner, Hazy. He got in a bit late, but I'm glad to see you, man. Hey, man, how you doing?
Uh, just dealing with a bit of turbulence. We had
Oh, really?
a bunch of not turbulence, but being a bit of facetious. But we had like half of our staff just not show up because of a party
Uh,
that happened earlier that week. So I had to accommodate for a lot of people that did not show up that day. So
Hey, man, don't burn yourself out. I know you're working hard.
Yeah.
yeah, warehouse is a pretty brutal job, pretty brutal indeed. Really,
Oh.
and but beyond all that, how you doing, Mike? How you doing? Sola told me a lot about you. He says you're a bit of a fanatic for Andrew himself. So you guys already got
Really
into
good
that,
man.
or you guys are just speaking about social media and the influence it has on whether or not you should be concerned about whether or not changing people's
So
opinions towards
we
social media.
covered AI, we covered schooling. What else did we cover? Andrew Yang and like
Right.
independent parties.
Yeah.
Anything? Am I missing anything, Ariel?
We like, yeah. I think you got the schooling down, and just last thing we're covering right now is just optimism. I think,
Yeah,
I
just
think, I
basically leaving a positive message type thing.
Right. And don't get stuck in the nostalgia and the past and all that stuff. Try to make something fun like today, or think about something fun to do like tomorrow, instead of just hoping that some past time is going to come back and make you feel good. Like, that's basically a losing. Yeah. In fact,
Yeah,
my past is over.
no, I agree with what you. But just wanted to contribute to what you were saying to that effect. In terms of the past and definitely dealing with nostalgia to some degree, I think there is something comforting to take from nostalgia and delving into it. But in terms of just trying to return to something, often ignores where the current landscape is, so how drastically it's different than what it is.
Exactly.
For example, I think Andrew Yang did something very interesting when he discussed at length about like physical labor and how it'll never like be the same in terms of like how automation has drastically changed how we do our regular labor and just society and just how we do it. So it seems kind of pointless to constantly like champion or campaign for like just this regular way of doing things when we have found such far more efficient ways of doing things. So trying to return to some level of like tradition in that capacity just seems like a nebulous and a fruitless endeavor. So I do agree with that. They definitely like blind nostalgia to some degree, and trying to implement it in the current landscape definitely blinds you to how drastically different things are in comparison
And
to those time
sometimes when you
periods.
think about it, like you people have a romanticized vision of their past, and like when they were living it, it was probably not as good as they thought. They're thinking it is, when they like they don't remember all the fights and all the terrible things that happened. Sometimes they just remember all the good stuff.
And it's funny you mention that too, because there's this cool video in the history of music, and it gets they get from 2010 through every single decade going back of like a famous song, talking about like, yeah, either two things. One, this new generation ain't shit, like excuse my language, or two, oh, the good old days. Can you guess how far he was able to go back with music talking about this subject of like, the good old days? All the way
Like,
back to early 1900s, like 1907. There was a song talking about like, oh, these new guys in the 1920s, silent generation for us. It was like they're weak, they're not built like we're built and stuff like that. And then it's just to me interesting, but I agree. It's like you can't lock on
it,
to this
it's just the
concept.
same BS, like repeating itself with like
every next generation, oh this, oh that. Like, I hope when I grow up, I'm not going to look at younger people and be like, oh, when I was their age. No, I'm going to be like, when I was their age, things probably sucked because of the people who are older than me. So I'm not going to be those older people to them, Like,
Yeah.
so I'm not going to repeat it. It's time to break the cycle for all I'm concerned. Anyway, I got about like 5 more minutes, so maybe you
Oh,
guys
what
go.
closing
Yeah.
thoughts you got for us, if you don't mind? Like, what would be a message you'd like for the audience to hear from you? Like, any like last out things,
Oh
life,
yeah,
good wisdom, good old Ariel.
like I think it's just like experiment with your life, because you're only gonna get one, and not like reckless kind of stupid experiments, but just kind of trying things out, like just for like the curiosity and for the fun of it, like exploring, asking yourself questions, why, is this thing in your life and you really think you need it, like that's, I think that, like, one of the most fun that I ever have in my life is going as a solo traveler to like a city I've never seen before and opening up a map and just like exploring it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What's it? Travel off the beaten path. Well,
Yeah, exactly.
hey, Ariel, thank you again, man, for being part of this podcast. I think it was really fun. I'd love to have you back another time. And if you want to get any of your advice too, like I'd be more than welcome. Like you guys are always invited to, Requiem Radio. Like love it to death. But
Yeah.
appreciate it, man. I hope you're doing well too. And yeah, great podcast. But
100%. I mean, thanks for having me, and I will catch you on the flip side.
oh yeah. Have a good rest of your day, man.
See ya.